So, the first thing that being made fun of taught me to do was to try to make myself invisible and to wait for someone to see me, for someone else to see me and recognize that I was alone, but also that I was probably really nice and just needed a friend. That's all I wanted, was to be loved, accepted, to have friends, to be included. But I was also just so afraid to allow myself to even be seen. And I didn't put two and two together back then. But I was just so afraid to be seen because if I was, it opened me up to being made fun of. Welcome to the Energy Within podcast, helping you to embrace your weird, beat imposter syndrome, remember who you really are, because I'm going to say all of it now, and take action on your soul's purpose. My name is Carrie Jokala. I am your host. I am a Reiki master teacher, a fitness instructor, a wife, a mom to 2 little boys, and this is episode 211. And it's finally the week, as I've been mentioning the last couple of weeks, to record the episode about more of my story from growing up and getting onto this intentional confidence journey. And before I jump all the way in, I do want to let you know that starting Monday, November 6th, I'm pretty sure that's the date, but the first Monday in November, I am going to begin a 30-day confidence challenge. I don't have the full structure figured out yet, but there will be some live videos interspersed, motivation, perhaps some exercises and mini challenges within the challenge, and you're going to get included in the monthly group Reiki and live meditation sessions that are part of my membership, which is now Glow the Confidence Collective. And our focus within the membership for the month of November is going to be on being seen, feeling safe, being seen, putting yourself out there, because that takes confidence. So I believe that including all of this together, what we're doing in the membership and the full challenge, will work together beautifully to help you raise and strengthen your confidence and your frequency by the end of the 30 days. So the cost of this challenge is just going to be $22, but like I said, that also includes you in the events inside the membership. So FYI, if you're already in the membership, you get this challenge, so don't sign up for it outside of it. I'll add you to the list. But it's kind of like you're getting a really heavily discounted 1-month trial of the membership without actually being locked into the membership. If you choose to stay, I would love to keep you, but this is just an added bonus as part of the challenge. So if you've either been here from the beginning or you've gone back and listened to the first episodes, episode number 3 is literally called My Story, so I'll try not to recount too many of the same stories. You can go back to that one and listen. I believe I told a story about a game of Foursquare and a situation from music class one year. And it sounds funny saying that, like, oh, a story about Foursquare that affected my confidence. But when you're a kid, those are our formative years. We're still figuring out who we even are, where we fit in. And so these seemingly small things from an adult perspective are huge when you're a kid. And when you don't know any different, and your brain just, factually speaking, can't see that far into the future to know that these things shouldn't matter, it's far more likely that these things are going to stick with you And I don't doubt that you have experiences like that from your childhood that have still stuck with you. And just because they're not in the forefront of your consciousness anymore doesn't mean that they might not still be affecting you a little bit, or at least every now and then. Even now, even a couple years now after recording that episode, there were a few tears while recording because I didn't realize how much, I think particularly the music class situation still affected me out. Like, all the feelings came flooding back. Even a couple years after recording that and kind of getting that out, I can still feel exactly how I felt. And I can feel the tears ready to come if I'm willing to let them. I can move through it pretty quickly. But the fact is, those feelings can still come flooding back. And there's a part of me that imagines once in a while it's a bumpy road, what it would be like if we had, say, an actual reunion for my grade school class, because I don't believe that's ever happened. I don't even know if they do that. I think I remember my mom saying something about a grade school reunion for her that she was going to at one point, but I don't recall anything ever being put together for my class. Younger me definitely wouldn't have gone. Current me kind of wants to go to one, not to show off and be like, look at me, but just to show up with my confident energy, sort of in a way to be like, hey, you didn't change me, you didn't get to me, but they kind of did get to me for a long time. But honestly, more in a way to rewrite the story, rewrite who I am among that particular group of people, to make it better, to make it feel better, to make it calmer and easier and not so sad and lonely. Because also, not just me, everybody, I'm sure, has grown, evolved, changed, and I'm sure that many people who may have said something to me or been mean to me in one way or another might not even remember or view me in the way that I think that they viewed me back then. That we would all probably approach that reunion with a completely fresh mindset, understanding that while we knew each other once, we probably don't really know the other people at all anymore. And when I was thinking about that, I realized I probably can absolutely go in and rewrite that story energetically. And I think that I will. But there's also a part of me that feels like it would just be much more satisfying to do it in the 3D. But the point I want to make in this episode, and what I'm going to go into, is what basically being made fun of, being excluded, being left out taught me, and where it sent my journey, in the hopes that it'll help you if you've ever felt any of the things that I've felt or experienced anything similar to what I went through. Because even adults can still go through a lot of this same stuff, and we'll touch on that too. So, the first thing that being made fun of taught me to do was to try to make myself invisible and to wait for someone to see me, for someone else to see me and recognize that I was alone, but also that I was probably really nice and just needed a friend. That's all I wanted, was to be loved, accepted, to have friends, to be included. But I was also just so afraid to allow myself to even be seen. And I didn't put two and two together back then. But I was just so afraid to be seen, because if I was, it opened me up to being made fun of. And it seemed there was nothing I could do about being left out. That just always happened. We kind of laugh about in the movies, there's the nerdy kid or the outcast kid or whatever who's always picked last in gym class. Well, that was actually my reality. Like 100%. Every time was always the last kid picked when we had to pick teams for gym class. And on the rare occasion that I actually got chosen by the gym teacher to be one of the team leaders who would pick who would be on which team, this like literally just came back to me now. All the kids who would groan if I picked them for my team. Like it was just the worst thing ever. Kids are mean, you guys. Kids can be so mean. And maybe sometimes without really realizing that what they're doing is mean, but that doesn't change how it feels to those of us that it's directed at. So then I tried really hard to actually try to be seen when I got to high school, try to have a different experience, because even though some of the same kids from my grade school went to the same high school with me, it was a much bigger class, a much bigger school. So I figured I had at least a chance of making some friends, and I did. But I still wasn't feeling like I was exactly where I wanted to be. And nothing against the friends that I had, because we got super close, and I was extremely grateful, still am extremely grateful for all of those friendships. But even then, there was just a part of me that was so conditioned that I went almost a little too far the opposite direction. And I wouldn't say I was obnoxious, but I tried really hard to be outgoing without really knowing what that meant or how to do that without being too big. And I don't really know how else to describe it. But I still found myself occasionally being made fun of. So it was this weird back and forth, up and down experience of emotions through high school. And if I would ever label something toxic positivity, if you've heard me say it before, I believe you can only be toxically positive towards yourself. And that's kind of what I was doing to myself and trying to tell myself that I was a little different, that I had a different personality now, that I was more outgoing now, and really trying to force things in a way. So it makes sense that it wasn't sticking, that it wasn't fully integrating into who I wanted to become, because I was forcing it. The whole fake it till you make it thing doesn't really work like that. I believe there's a better way to explain how to be who you want to be without faking it. But I was really essentially faking it. Came to college, and things kind of evened back out, but I became a little bit more withdrawn again. Not entirely trying to make myself invisible, but now really trying to make myself visible, but make it known how sad and lonely I was, so that maybe somebody would see me and rescue me out of this sadness and loneliness. And I don't remember if I described my light bulb moments. I probably did, but I'll just briefly go over them again here if you haven't listened to that first episode. I believe what came first, in fact, I know what came first, is I was talking to somebody else, and in that conversation, I suddenly started to see myself in her, because I was feeling uncomfortable is not exactly the right word, but the energy was just a little off. It was almost like she was seeking pity from me, and it just didn't feel good, and I didn't feel like I had the energy to give to her that would help her or lift her up, and I didn't want to either. It felt icky, and I kind of felt a little sad and a little sorry for her at the same time, but didn't want that responsibility of having to lift her up and make her see who she really was. And in that moment, that was the first time I realized that despite how badly I wanted to be included, how badly I wanted to have friends and feel like I belonged, I was unintentionally, with my energy, pushing people away, because that's how I was making them feel. And then not too long after that, that didn't change a whole lot for me, but it got me to start thinking Then I overheard a couple of my dance teachers talking about somebody else, and I'm positive it was somebody else, and how they really loved this person, but they were always so down on themselves. And no matter what they said or did to try to make this person feel better, to lift them up, to make them see how awesome they really were and how much potential they had, this person never accepted any of that. Even though I'm sure, without knowing this person, I'm sure that's what he wanted. I think it was a he that they were talking about. I'm sure that's what he wanted. But it's really weird when you're in that state. That's what you want, yet you push it away because there's this underlying worry that it's all fake, or that it's somehow backhanded and it's going to be turned around and they're actually making fun of you and laughing at you. It's really weird. It's like you're asking for what you want, and then anytime you actually get it, you push it away because your worthiness just isn't to that level. But they were getting so drained and so tired of constantly basically having to give their energy to this person to try to lift them up. But then to see it not be accepted was just getting frustrating. So it was making them almost kind of want to give up. And because of that first light bulb moment, in overhearing this conversation, I was able to see myself in both places, in both people's shoes at the same time. And I went, whoa. So that was the biggest light bulb moment, my huge wake-up call to start changing the way I was thinking and the way I was acting. It doesn't mean, just because it was a light bulb moment, it's not like it was a switch where everything was instantly better the next day and everything was fine. No, it began a long journey that started with me consciously, just like I always say, noticing first. Catching myself when I was having these thoughts of worry that people might actually be making fun of me, or that I'm bothering people by even just being around. Anytime I caught those thoughts, I didn't even actually try to flip them around. I just turned them off. Essentially told them to go away. And it was amazing how different I felt after that in those same interactions as they continued. As soon as those thoughts would come up and I would shut them down, it was like my focus shifted and my energy shifted. And I started to actually feel better about myself because I realized I didn't need somebody else to tell me that I belonged, or that it was okay for me to be around, or that I was a good person, or that I was confident. All I really had to do was tell myself that and be who I wanted to be in that moment. It took a lot of practice to get it to stick and to get it to a point where I didn't have to consciously think about it. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't still have those kind of intrusive thoughts pop up once in a while, but they get easier to shut down even faster the more you practice. And it's funny too, I realized in between pauses of recording during this that when I was younger, when I was still in grade school, somewhere I came across the quote, I believe from Eleanor Roosevelt, that nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent. And I love that quote. For the longest time, that was my favorite quote. And I'm pretty sure I made that my senior quote in my yearbook in high school. But what was interesting, if you paid attention to my evolution from grade school through high school through college, it clearly didn't resonate fully enough with me for me to actually enact that in my life. I liked it. It made sense to me. But I had a hard time putting it into practice until I had those light bulb moments. So here's the thing. It sounds harsh to say things like, nobody's coming to save you. You can't wait for a savior. but it kind of is the truth here in this 3D reality. As far as you becoming who you want to be, you can't wait for somebody else to give you permission. You don't need somebody else to give you permission. You shouldn't want anybody else telling you who to be or who you are. I think it's great and it's helpful and sometimes even necessary to get that confirmation from people that they see who you want to be, who you really are, and can reflect that back to you. But there's also a level of getting yourself to a point where you don't need that in order to be who you know you are here to be and who you want to be. It does not mean that we shouldn't help out other people, that we shouldn't lift each other up, compliment each other, tell each other how amazing we all are. We're so quick to give negative feedback instead of positive. So you might very well encounter somebody who is that light bulb moment in the sense of kind of saving you, waking you up to who you really are, helping you see who you really are. But that's also only going to happen if you're in a place where you're energetically willing to accept it. And I know I never was. I was that person who always pushed away the compliments, who pushed away certain potential friendships, certain potential relationships, because I was worried that it was backhanded. I mean, as a quick example, as a freshman in high school, I remember walking with my gym class. We were going to, I think, the football field to do whatever we were going to be doing for gym class that day. And I may have been walking with another girl and talking to her, but everyone was kind of in their own little groups. And one of the guys in my class was a football player. He might have been the quarterback for all I know. Like, sounds like all the stereotypical stuff. But he was definitely a football player, whatever position he played. And some girl ran up to me and was like, "Hey, so-and-so wants to go to homecoming with you." And I feel like I would still have the same response today, even being confident. But it came from a different place. Back then, I looked at her and I was excited, but I was trying really hard not to show it because I was worried that it was some sort of backhanded setup so they could laugh at me. So I told her, tell him to ask me himself. And he never did. So again, part of me went home a little bit excited that, oh my God, this kind of popular football player wants to go out with me. But then he never, I think through all of high school, said one word to me. I don't think he even ever said hi, to be honest. So who knows? I still have no confirmation of what was really the intention there. Maybe he really did want to go to homecoming with me. Maybe it was some sort of backhanded setup. I'll never know. I did catch him looking at me a couple times at homecoming at the dance, but no way to tell what the reason was because I wasn't about to ask him. But maybe I turned him off by being so pushy. Maybe I sounded rude when I said it, but I was really just trying to protect myself, close myself off so that I wouldn't be made fun of. And the thing is, before I wrap up, if we haven't had any kind of light bulb moments, they don't have to be the same as mine, but if we haven't had any kind of wake-up calls, any kind of light bulb moments that help to spark us to change our thoughts, to change our behaviors, to start to own who we are, to own our confidence, to give ourselves permission first, rather than seeking permission from other people to be who we want to be. If we don't do that, then we move into adulthood carrying all of this with us. And I see that because even having done a lot of this work for myself, putting it into hyperdrive by introducing Reiki, introducing energy work to help actually shift the energy field and cement all of this in. I still have, like I said, those random glimmer moments where one of those old thoughts will pop up, but I've just gotten better at moving through it. I don't want to say shutting it down because I don't want it to come across differently, because it's not pretending. It's no longer pretending. But to me, it feels like shutting it down because I'm intentionally understanding that that thought is not me, that thought is not true, and I don't need to accept it. So in that sense, I'm shutting it down, but I'm also moving through it because I'm choosing to remember who I actually am and that I get to be that version of me all the time, because it doesn't matter what anybody else says or possibly thinks about me, because you can never know for real what other people think of you if we're not talking about it, if we're not asking. But if we're just making assumptions, we don't really know. There's no way to really know unless you're going to talk about it. And even then, there could be lingering questions. So you've got to own who you are first and remember that you get to be who you're here to be all the time without anybody else's permission. But the point in all of that is that if people who've worked through all of this, who've been working through all of this, can still have those glimmer moments, well, then just think about anyone, and maybe it's you, who hasn't had the time, the energy, the opportunity to shift your energy, to shift your focus, to work through all of this. Then we're still carrying all of that. And it makes life so much harder than it needs to be. Unnecessarily hard. So, all that said, in this Gifts to Gold masterclass series that I just took with Casey Villard, she said something about within these programs, containers, groups, it's not that the leader is the confident one and everyone else has to try to follow suit and look up to them and try to emulate them. It's more that everyone who comes into these groups gets to kind of borrow from the confidence of the leader, of other people in the group, until they reach a point where it's fully their own confidence. So, even though we know we can't intentionally wait for someone to save us, to rescue us, to lift us up, that doesn't mean that it's not okay to seek or offer support. So that's what my membership is here for. That's what this 30-day challenge is going to be here for, to give you that support, to give you kind of a library to borrow some confidence from, so that you can really start to see what it feels like. You can try it on without faking it, and you can grow into your own version of confidence so that you can still be you. You can have that level of confidence that you see in others that you want to have, but it's still you. So please go to the link in the show notes and join that challenge. If you want to jump right into the group and continue to stay with us, you can take that option as well. But in the meantime, you can take the $22 option that doesn't lock you into anything. It doesn't lock you into any monthly agreements. It's just for this 30-day challenge. But you get to come inside the membership for the month and be there for our Reiki session and our meditation, which are both going to have the focus of allowing yourself to feel safe being seen. I would love to have you there for this challenge. I would love to have 100 people. Let's set a lofty goal, 100 people in this challenge. So if you join, bring a friend, bring 5 friends. Let's grow this thing and let's go through this together and let's see how amazingly different you can feel at the end of 30 days. So jump inside that challenge, and if any part of this episode resonated with you, I sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart anytime you share an episode of the podcast. Share it with a friend, share it with a family member, share it to your social media. Remember to tag me on Instagram at I am Carrie Jokala, and of course hop inside the Energy Within Facebook group for all the updates and occasional live videos with some mini group Reiki sessions and live card pulls. And real quick, last one, if you're local to me, you have a couple opportunities to see me this week. You can come see me. Both are at Stone and Sage in New Berlin. On Thursday the 26th, I am going to be there from 4:30 to 6:30 for in-person Reiki sessions. And then on Sunday the 29th, I'm going to be there from 6 to 8 p.m. with a couple of other ladies for a tea and tarot event, although I will be doing oracle card readings. And you do have to get your ticket in advance for this. You can get it at the door, but I think you don't get a goodie bag if you don't book in advance. So if you want the goodie bag, buy your ticket in advance. It's $25, and I'll make sure to put the link for that in the show notes as well and inside my group. And I hope to see you there if you're local. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.